Good morning, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to, teach and instruct in this area. Let's see. I was going to say a couple of things just to make sure everyone has what they need. Everyone's got handouts and a pen because we'll need that during the session. And I was going to say, I guess I'll speak up. Okay, I will do my best to project. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. A little bit about me, and then my story, and then we're going to dive right into our exercise for today. That's most of what we're going to be doing. It's about you guys and trying to make sure that you get what you can learn what you can about your own mindset. Okay, so I started talking with Faith a little bit about who I am, but I'm a former accountant. This past October, November, I made a big life shift. Definitely have been following FI for a long time and on my own path to FI. Major part of my path was entrepreneurship. I owned an accounting firm. And then over the course of last year, I decided that it was time for me to sell that accounting firm so that I could pursue other things. And those other things are this new business, Reexamine Wealth. So, the thing that I'm most interested in right now is mindset and coaching. I feel like that's one of the parts of financial independence that we just don't hear enough about, but it's like your behavior, your beliefs, your mindset, all of those things greatly affect your progress towards financial independence and then your happiness level, on the path there and then afterwards as well. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. And then, as far as the services my firm offers, tax planning, financial planning, and then a bit about me. These are my why for FI. I love yoga. I love kind of my own mindfulness, and I love working with people. I love culture and nature, and I want to spend a lot more of my time doing that type of stuff rather than being at work all day and in spreadsheets as an accountant. So, all right. So mindset and beliefs. So I was going to say, how do people feel? How much do people feel like they know? Or do people feel fairly comfortable with this topic of mindset, or is it kind of foreign? Just maybe hands if you feel comfortable with it. Okay. Basically, the gist here is just that everyone, no matter if you know it or not, you have beliefs that are kind of like automatic default assumptions that are coming into your mind as you approach just any given topic on any given day. And so my goal here is, especially with money, money is a pretty significant one, and we all place an importance on money because otherwise we wouldn't be here. And so it's important to know, even if these are positive or negative or whatever these beliefs are, it's important to know what they are and then how they may affect how you're approaching life. I guess this second part about beliefs, I really liked this: attitudes about the world which can be either true or false. The biggest thing about beliefs is that we usually think of these as universal truths, and that's not necessarily the case, and so it's important to know that bias. And then coaching, the thing I really love about coaching is I feel like it's this process where you're working with another person, and that person is really just trying to reflect back to you and get you to see exactly how you are approaching the world. And from that standpoint, this aspect of like being able to break through what is normal or predictable for you, just this idea that once you discover your mindset and can sort of only work from a place of positivity, you're able to accomplish what you previously thought was impossible to accomplish. Any questions before I leave this slide? Great. All right, so now a bit about me. I always love to have this picture. Every person is like, what? The story behind that is I was the last person to have taken my picture, and I was missing lunch, and so I felt kind of left out. But yes, that was a 4-year-old me. I was not that serious. But at any rate, so my FI story, for all intents and purposes, I'm very proud of where I am today. I had a really great sort of background, great parents, taught me really good things with money, really great habits. You see, I had my first bank account at 10. I cut grass when I was 13 as like a little side hustle. And also washed cars. So really good stuff there. But the flip side to this is that there were different beliefs that I did have to work through. And so I'm going to take you through some of those limiting beliefs, just so that you can start to see some of the stuff that we're going to be working on. Okay, so this idea that I'm not smart, I'm not good at math. When I went to let's see, let me take it back. My parents, part of their great saving habits and so forth were connected to, their positions and their kind of work beliefs. Both of them were employees. They had good jobs, college graduates and all of that. I don't think either of them loved their jobs. They did their jobs as a means to make sure their family were stable. And I think that there were parts they liked, but they definitely pushed my brother and I to be able to towards entrepreneurship and business as a way that we could write our own tickets. And so they encouraged entrepreneurship, but then also, just making sure that you can take care of yourself and they're financially stable. And so the flip side to that, though, these limiting beliefs were I was not good at math necessarily, but I would say I was not interested in math was more what it was. I didn't gravitate towards it. And so my parents stressed those subjects that were like the sciences, maths, and all those. And since I was better at art and reading and books and things like that, it was one of those things where I didn't really connect with those things as like, oh, I can be like if I pursue those things, I can be successful at them. And so I kind of developed this thing of like, well, I'm not good at the things I'm supposed to be good at, or I'm not as interested in them. And so that became somewhat of a limiting belief. I'm a loner and I'll never find my person or my people. I came out I went to an all-boys Catholic school, very sports heavy. I'm a gay kid. I was very much I definitely did not play sports well and felt kind of like a little bit weird and a little bit, different from the other guys. And so that also played into my money mindset to a degree. I guess the other part too, with it being kind of this prep school, my family was definitely more, I guess I like to use this distinction between balance sheet versus income statement wealth. So I think balance sheet is, like your net worth, it's your assets versus your liabilities, whereas income statement is, income, what you make each year. And most of the people that I went to school with were definitely income statement rich, a lot of Mercedes and BMWs and fancy clothes and all of that. But my family was definitely focused much more on the balance sheet, assets, investments, education, all that. And so another place where I just felt a little bit weird. And I guess the way that affected my money mindset was it caused me to to spend more to try to fit in and to project a certain lifestyle and things like that. Another one that's probably really big in here, I don't have any unhealthy biases with money because I save and invest. You you have something out there, but you may not know what it is. You may be better off than others in some ways, but there might be some things you're ignoring. And that's what we're definitely here to look at. And let's see. Yeah, and then I guess the next one is one of the ones that typically people who are vigilant with their money have is I have to save every dollar because it's scarce. And so that's a belief all in and of itself, and it's got effects to it. So at any rate, what I'm really doing here is telling you a lot about me to set things up for what this type of stuff that you guys are going to be looking into next. So our exercise is next. What you guys are going to do is I wanted to have you kind of break off in groups of 2 or 2 to 3, whatever kind of works based on the people around you. And what I was going to say is basically the questions that I have that are going to come up on the next slide, I'm going to give you probably like 2 minutes per person. And I want when one person is kind of like going and answering those questions, I want to have the other person kind of like hold them accountable a little bit, like ask some probing questions if you feel like the person's kind of staying a little surface level. And the goal here is, so I'm basically having you kind of do like paired off coaching with each other as a way to like help you, dig into some of this stuff. So maybe okay. Actually, before we do that, I forgot about this. Before we do this, I'll give you guys each, I'll do 4 minutes and I'll let you guys map out some of your financial goals just so that you can, kind of have them written down. And then, after that, we'll kind of come back and break off. So now we're going to kind of do our breakout exercise a little bit. And so I guess what I was going to say is, I don't know, depending on how you are, if you want to write your answers down as you're kind of responding or whichever way sort of works for you, but I'll do 4 minutes for this discussion. All right, everyone, we're at time. So now, who wants to share some of the stuff that they've come up with in their small group? Any kind of common ones that you had for the first one? Or funny ones or anything like that? Maybe rules that people have? Oh yeah, good call. Yeah, I guess maybe pass around the mic when you're volunteering.
I can go. So my first one is always buy a good deal.
Okay. Always buy a good, meaning don't let that good deal pass you by. You got to buy it.
When I buy something, always find a good deal.
Oh, okay. There is a difference, yeah.
Always buy new deals, like if I see something that's, I'm like, oh my God, it's on sale, so I have to get it.
Right.
It's that bad, right? So there's something just sitting there because I got a good price, but now it's like, waste of money. But the way you get it,
Oh yeah.
Yep. And then that's a time thing.
I saw the shock look everyone had, like when I said always buy a good deal. And the caveat with like when I want to buy something that I want, then figured out that always buy a good deal.
How about? Yeah, I was going to say I can pass this one.
Works for number one, top 5 rules was spending values and automate.
Okay. These are good ones.
Simple is sexy.
That's good. Anything from the front group for the first one?
Yeah.
Rules about money.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Enjoy your money.
Enjoy your money.
We said enjoy your money. Like, don't worry about getting that appetizer or that drink when you go out to dinner.
Okay. How about number 2? Rich people are. Any good ones from this one?
You said not always who you think.
Anna's smiling, so I'm going to give it to her.
No, I struggled with this one because I didn't want to have to like generalize, and I felt like I was either like picking good or bad, and I felt like that shouldn't even necessarily, like I feel like I shouldn't even have those thoughts.
We're also not going for the cookie cutter answers. We don't have to be nice here. Like we're going for like gut reaction.
Yeah, we went with selfish and generous.
Selfish and generous. Cool. Anyone else want to share on this one?
Oh yeah, I liked her answer.
Yeah, we said the one we came up with was rich people are not always who you think they are.
Okay.
I was going to say rich people in general in the U.S. are not well liked, right? They're vilified in a lot of ways. But what's funny is people in general, I think when they do surveys, very few people consider themselves part of the rich, right? Even though by definition, more are, right? Like if you're in the top 20% or the top 10% of incomes, right? Like by definition, you might be rich, but they don't see themselves that way. And so they still see that class as a negative for the country. Yeah.
I like that.
But everybody wants to be.
That's one thing I've noticed across my client base. No one considers themselves rich. Like it's always someone else.
I would say that they're good at buying back time with their money, delegating tasks that they like they don't want to do. Where, for example, like I think we frowned upon as a society to get like maybe nannies and then to get like housekeepers to like house cleaning services, dry cleaning, all the other services. But at the same time, like for them, it's about return on money, right? If that makes, again, going back to that theory of if you can get a good deal, like then I think it's at certain point in our life, I think we should strive to be able to have the financial means to buy back our time with our money.
And then I'll just take the final 3, 4, and 5. If anyone wants to call out anything, because we only have a minute or 40 seconds left. Anyone? Anything that really kind of stuck out for people? Okay. No limit?
We all agree there's no limit for us to make. No amount is too much.
Okay. And you believe that in your heart deeply. Oh, Luke, do you have something?
Yeah, I was gonna say we both threw out a number around like the 300K, which was kind of funny. I guess we see like 100K and like 200, like, oh, that's like reasonable for us in our careers, I guess. But we're like 300 and up. No, that's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? Which is kind of funny because I don't know, it doesn't seem that different. And also, I said if I think Alex definitely sees like financial success. I will lose a lot of negative things. But when I look at it, I said I might lose like relationships. It could make things with friends or family more difficult. So that was what I said if I was financially successful.
Cool. Anyone else have anything? Okay. So now we're going to move on to the next slide. Oh, we had our discussion. So uncover your beliefs about work. So you'll go back into your small groups. All right, we're at time. So now we'll come back as a group and we'll have our discussion on these few. So for the first one, anyone want to volunteer?
Let's go to the back room.
Uh,
Start with the back.
oh, yeah, they have a mic back
You guys
there.
gotta share with the large group.
Yeah. For the first one, what do you get from work?
Money.
Money.
We said money, benefits, and structure.
Okay.
Nice.
This is Alice's answer, and her job is going to school, but she's getting some like independence and being able to like choose what she works on any day.
I get socialization. I like who I work with, and I feel like I'm a part of 2 departments, so I like having 2 groups of people.
Maybe we can just go around. Like each group needs to have one answer, maybe for each like questions. So I would say appreciation, competency slash a little bit deeper. It's like self-worth. It's not like sometimes you do tie a little bit of your self-worth to how competent you are at your job, and obviously it's not entirely 100% good. But I do want to just point it out. And last thing is relationship with coworkers.
Work is.
Maybe we can like just to move it faster. We can go this way and that way, and then provide a question so we can like.
Come.
For work is honestly my job's been pretty chill lately. It used to be a little bit more stressful, but now that I work from home, I like it. It's enjoyable. Maybe I'm in the minority. I don't know.
It's stressful, enjoyable, mixed emotions. I'm sure there's lots of that.
I'm a nurse. It can be stressful, backbreaking, and a headache at times.
Backbreaking. Okay. There.
You said it's necessary for the time being, and can be part of your identity. I don't think we got a third one.
Cool. Did you guys have anything to share?
I said stressful.
Okay.
I started a new job a couple months ago, and actually, when you said what do you get from work, it always used to be relationships. It used to be a big part for me, and it didn't even occur to me this time because now I am working remotely, and I don't have those connections that I miss, and I forgot that that's what I used to love about going into the office. So I'm still struggling with the whole work from home remote thing.
Thanks for sharing that. Unspoken rules of conduct. I guess I was, any of those. I guess we can start back there and kind of move back up this way.
We just kind of said the regular behavioral stuff that you kind of learn from HR on your first day. Like be nice to people, no harassing, and that kind of stuff.
Ours was also be respectful of others.
Most of ours are all spoken, and there's constant updates, constant policies. At least there's a policy for everything. Too much.
Mm-hmm.
Too many rules at times.
So if people ask you to do something, generally it's like you should do it.
you don't really, you're asked something, but you don't have the option to decline it. So
Yeah, exactly.
Dress appropriately. Like, you know, if like in certain workplaces, like business casual is like the lowest you can go. But I definitely see the culture changing in the sense that people maybe like, you know, business on top and jeans at the bottoms and, you know, like maybe sneakers. And then also lastly, it's like you don't move up or changing role by doing your job well. You actually do it by doing your job well enough and also network a lot internally to move around in any organizations. No one's going to tap your shoulder. Sometimes you need to advocate for yourself.
one of the ones in public accounting, just about every firm I worked at, except for maybe one, and then in my own firm, was just that if you weren't working probably like upwards of, if you weren't always working overtime, then you were basically a slacker. One of those, you know, of course they would always tout the work-life balance and stuff like that, but that was the norm, really. And then the final one, anyone want to share? I won't make everyone go, but if anyone's got stuff in particular they want to do for the fourth one.
Being able to travel at will.
Burnout.
Lack of interest or enthusiasm for the tasks involved.
That's real.
Lack of flexibility, lack of like, you know, flexibility in terms of like vacation times, in terms of like when you have to work, et cetera, et cetera. So.
All right, now we're going to launch into our next set of questions. These are going to be on family beliefs. Families can be fun. So give you guys 4 minutes again. All right, everyone, we're at 4 minutes now. I was going to bring us back to do our discussion. So what I'll do with this one, rather than have us go through each question, because I feel like a lot of them are kind of getting at the same thing. I just like to kind of have the different questions there. I think maybe first if anyone can think of direct quotes, I think that could be a fun one. And I'll have some people share some direct quotes, and then maybe then we'll do sort of like a second one as just like a general, you know, how did your parents treat money and how are they with you with money? So let's start back in the back.
I immediately, with the first thing, my first thing was a quote, even before we got to the question about direct quotes. And it was, you better get a scholarship because we can't afford to send you to college.
All righty. Any other direct quotes?
Save, you never know what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Is there one in the back? So, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so my dad, I think, didn't make as much as his siblings, but he always told me growing up, he reinforced money doesn't buy happiness, right? He would say that to me, which is funny because a lot of people like to argue about that, and they say, well, it buys you a lot of stuff, like it can kind of get you happy, you know what I mean? But I took that to heart, so I'm a pretty strong believer that being rich doesn't make you happy. Yeah.
And then just kind of in general, you know, anyone want to share just, you know, how their parents were with them and some of their memories from childhood. Would you guys mind passing over the mic?
As my parents always had a good ethic about saving or whatever, but they never really talked about money. And I remember my dad got completely burnt in the stock market in the 80s. So he never encouraged any kind of investment like that. But I was in my, I think, late 20s when Like a family friend was at our house, and he was really good at investing and everything, and he just happened to give me this like lesson at the kitchen table about investing, and that's when I started to max out my 401k. But if it wasn't for that one conversation, I would have like nothing compared to what I have now. And because my parents didn't pass on that information to me, but that one uncle did. And then I was saying I've shared that information with a couple of friends, and some completely take it to heart, and like some are just like, oh, money, money, money. They're such a gold digger or whatever. So it depends on if somebody's open to listening to that stuff and taking advice. But I still remember that conversation from like so many years ago. Like, so thankful for that.
I thought of another quote if you want me to share.
Go for it. Sure.
So after I told my dad about, path to and fire and all that, and I told him my investing strategy, right? It's like VTSAX, right? All the way. And then after thinking about it for a while, he said, man, Luke, if I had just done what you did 30 years ago, I'd be so much richer. You know what I mean? And he's like doing very well, but he's like, yeah, like I tried to chase, incredible returns all the time, and it never worked for me. And if I had just done the simple thing, it would have worked a lot better. So he thinks I'm on the right path.
I'll add. A lot of my funny conversation is probably with my mom, and so when I told her about the fire movement and people like retiring early, I think it's a little bit of like disbelief that they can actually do it in like 40, 50, so insert number. And I think there's also like a sense of self-worth and sense of like achievement that she derived from her work. And then she's like, well, what do people do when they retire so early? Like, and then she'll add something along the line of like it's just a waste of talent. I think that she said that after my campfire trip that happened over the weekend. It's like, what do they do? Like, are they contributing to the society? And so it's kind of like she ties work, like a structure environment where you trade your time for money to kind of to having value. So I definitely have a lot of that. That's like that I'm like that I recognize, and then and Kyle not like working through it, but like recognize it at this point. So I need to like find other avenues from which I derive my own self-worth from.
Good observations. Anyone else?
Back to like parents' thoughts on money and stuff like that. At least my dad was, I guess, like the main breadwinner and stuff, and he made most of the financial decisions, and my mom, I'm sure, was involved in it, but it wasn't like a very open thing a lot of times. And I know that whenever my dad had passed, most of the stuff was in his name, or they had some shared accounts here and there, but my mom was very kind of clueless on certain things. So it took a very long time to try and get everything kind of straightened out after he had passed, to try and close accounts and shuffle everything around and try and make sure everything legally was done so that it was in her name. And then even later on after she had passed, trying to even correct a lot of the stuff that she did not learn from. It was a very difficult, intense situation that could have been handled a lot different if it had been more open and more conversations around it.
All right. So next, anyone else have anything to add before we move on? Okay. Okay.
So my dad is definitely like he grew up in a generation that didn't have a lot of money. Like it's back after World War II in like Hong Kong, and you might know Hong Kong is like a very populous and like prosperous city until recently, but then back in the time they like my parents like tell me stories where they're not living in the nicest condition like growing up. But so that's one thing. And he also got like he saw through an era where they have credit, like access to bank account, credit card, and things like that. So when I was like 18, he would say, Alex, like like open a credit card. He opened a credit card for me, and then like and they have like a limits of like 1,000, and then like here we go, and then but just put some money to it, and then every month, and they will pay it. Like so, I make sure to like maybe just like put like $100 on it every month, but that helps me build credit at the age of like 18, which I appreciate. Like a lot of people do that now for their kids, but like with my dad didn't do it for me. Like with I don't know I don't know when I would start having my credit, and I bought a house when I was 24. So like I think without that credit, even that little bit of credit being built up, I don't think I would have been able to get financing at like 2011. So
They were savvy and helped you with that. Okay, so next, now we're going to go back into a point. This is mostly kind of your work on your own, so to speak. So this is where you're going to be trying to like synthesize some of the stuff that we've gone through in the last few slides. And I want you to, so now you're trying to think of what are some of like your beliefs. So like when you think of what are your default kind of, assumptions that might be that on a daily basis related to money, maybe ones that came from your life. And then, the second part is going to be beliefs that came from your parents. And so this is where I guess I'm going to encourage you, the more that you're willing to confront things that may be sort of like under the surface, and maybe use your partners to, if you feel like you kind of need some questions, or I'm happy to also help out with some of these too. But 5 from your experiences and then 5 from your parents. And 4 minutes, and I'll call out at 2. Oh, and we won't do a discussion on these, just because I feel like they're pretty personal. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I put some questions here in case people are having trouble kind of like picking up some of their beliefs. I thought maybe some of these might be helpful. So I'll flip back here just so that you know the assignment. But yeah, and just a reminder, you're not answering these questions. These are just to kind of stimulate thought around those beliefs, if helpful. All right, we're at 4 minutes now, but for the next exercise is writing down alternatives to your beliefs. And so you're still going to be kind of on your own, and I'll say kind of like draw a line next to the beliefs that you just wrote down. And now what we're going to do is write down alternatives to those beliefs. So an example might be, I'm trying to remember some of the ones that people said. Mary Jo, what was yours? It was... Okay, that's a tricky one. That's so definite. Or I guess yeah, okay, that's definitely an alternative. You don't have to go to college, or you could have gotten a job and then done it, or maybe a grandparent might have been helped. I don't know. But the idea is just that I'm trying to get you guys to think of and make sure that you're seeing the other sides to some of those beliefs. The problem with these beliefs is when they're just so very rigid, and you can't sort of think your way around them, so to speak. So 4 more minutes. final part is I'm going to share with you some of the alternatives to my limiting beliefs. You know, the biggest thing here is just the idea that, so there's sort of two different types of stress. There's what's called, regular stress, which is what people experience, lots of anxiety and negative thoughts. But then eustress is something that comes from usually more positive thoughts. And, it's when you're encouraging yourself with a growth mindset involved. A lot of these goals that I have achieved in my path to FI was filled with lots of stress. And now I'm focusing and changing it to eustress. And so these were, once I was able to kind of, I find that there's just much more happiness on the path. And when you're using eustress instead. And so here's some of my alternatives and kind of where I'm at. And I was going to say that's essentially the presentation. The other thing I was going to allow you guys to do is to, if you want to spend time to like revisiting your own personal goals after kind of going through the exercise, seeing if you change them at all, feel free to do that. But otherwise, I will close us out. So if you don't release some of your old stories, where will you be? Thank you.
Brandon, I have a question.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if anyone else has questions.
Go for it.
It might be a little bit personal, not super personal. When you're at the FIRE group, no, I really liked your last slide and how you changed things. You changed the way you used to think about things, and you overcame a lot of your challenges. It looks like. I think it's really cool you're doing the sabbatical. So I'm curious if you talk about becoming FI. If you've already exceeded 1 million in cash and investments, when do you see yourself as FI, or do you already see yourself as FI?
I'm still working through some of my own stuff with like how do I want my lifestyle to look? What is meaning? Like how do I still have like a meaningful life? Like I like my work. Like I like doing stuff like this. I like interacting with people. And so I know that's a key component. So work is still something that I plan to do. I'd like to do less of it. Yeah, I guess I'd say I'm coast fi to kind of lean fi. I haven't had kids yet, and that's something I'm thinking about too. And that's another big financial kind of like lifestyle changer. So yeah.
Okay. Do you not necessarily have like a number in mind?
I don't anymore. Yeah, now okay. I'm not using much. Well, I mean, obviously I pay attention to metrics, but I don't use, it's not a number thing. It's more just, the desired lifestyle. Okay. So one of the things I'm focused on, I'd like to have a second house outside of a city, someplace more closer to water, more rural. Okay. But I also like the city lifestyle. So I'm kind of exploring, what arrangement might be ideal that way. So yeah, it's kind of a lot of unknowns at this moment.
I have a follow-up question. So I did not notice how well your business were doing until I saw the slides again. So what's the driving decision to sell a highly profitable business instead of trying to slow down your hours to like a coast-fi kind of hour lifestyle?
Yeah, that's where like I definitely have to caveat this with it was a very personal decision and like may not have been the thing for most people, but I had to look into why I was in that business in the first place. And a lot of the things that pushed me towards accounting were just like the fact that I just really wanted security. I was also trying to make my conservative, kind of like my parents and the way they lived, like I was kind of duplicating their life. And so my interest just wasn't there. And then also like, I could have done something like that and then made this like a passive asset and then, gone and done my financial planning / coaching stuff. But then it's like, you know, I guess this is where I can say you can do anything but not everything. And so if I'm being realistic about where my time's spent, I can't expect to work 20 hours, have this business here and be like fully monitoring that business. It's not really going to be passive. And then also start this other business. It was, you know, I just looked at the way I was spending my life up into that time and working a lot of 50, 60-hour weeks and things like that. So I had to make a change.
Nice.
And I also wanted my employees to, you know, kind of have, you know, when I did that as well, I wanted my employees to be able to continue working someplace. And they needed a home and an owner, and there just weren't good managers. You know, I did do a job search for a manager, and I didn't find anyone who I was excited about. Any other questions?
Just thinking about, sorry, your business. So you said you do financial planning and tax planning for the Reexamine Wealth?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sure. No, thanks for asking. Yeah, so the only part that I kind of kept from my old business is the tax planning, and then, you know, a little bit of business advisory, but it's so much more lean than that old firm was. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Hope you guys got something out of it.
Alex, close us out.
So thank you very much for coming. So when I was 23, I was trying to figure out how to be a millionaire, right? So I put out the spreadsheets, and then I calculate what's the realistic amount I can save annually so that I don't feel like, you know, completely like, you know, depriving myself of any basic necessity. There's only so much beans and rice and beans you can eat on a daily basis. So, and I come up with like a number that's about $30,000 that you save. And then it still takes like 15 years for that number at like 7%, like, or 8% to hit like $1 million. So what I learned is that there's a lot of like, and I wasn't even at that number at that point, right? So there's a lot of like growth, a lot of like limiting belief that I need to break out of. So like, for example, like with my work, it's like, you know, you expect loyalty, and sometimes like job hopping turns out to be the best path to get to that number. And then you have to think about, oh, what are my limiting beliefs? Okay, I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, so and then am I be able to network and find relationships, and so that to move jobs, and then like, oh, am I going to be able to learn new skill sets at a new job? So those are all like my, like, you know, limiting beliefs that that wasn't really covered here. But then when I think about like, oh wow, I over the past 15 years in my professional life, I definitely have a lot of limiting beliefs that I can't overcome. So and that goes, it's the same in different types of situations, and like, you know, and in terms of like, oh, can you save that amount of money? Like what, like, it's like, you know, like Brandon talks about, like how, you know, is being rich even a good thing? Like that's like a topic that we can touch over. So with that said, like, it's not just about the money. Like I think a lot of articles focus too much on the money, but they didn't dive enough into the lots of like belief that people have about money. So with that said, I thank you for Brandon for being so vulnerable and to come here and make the presentation. And like, I really learned a lot, and I hope you learned a lot too. So give him a round of applause.